Hi, I'm Adele Arakawa. On behalf of the Chief Justice of the Colorado Supreme Court, the Governor, and the Attorney General of Colorado, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation. As a Judicial Nominating Commissioner, you have been entrusted with the fundamental responsibility of recommending to the Governor the candidates you believe are best qualified to serve as a state court judge. The goal of this presentation is to give an overview of your role in the selection process, discuss the skills and qualities of a good judge, and provide suggestions for evaluating judicial candidates.
The appointment of quality judges for Colorado State Court bench depends very much on the dedication and commitment of the members of the Judicial Nominating Commissions. We know you take this role very seriously. Thank you for volunteering your time and energy to this important endeavor. Your work is invaluable. We hope you find it rewarding.
Judges have an enormous responsibility. The decisions they make can profoundly affect the lives of citizens just like you. That's why selecting people who are well suited for this role is critical to ensuring an independent and qualified judiciary. A judiciary that treats everyone fairly and equally. That's where you come in.
It's important that you're prepared to carry out your role as a commissioner. To help you succeed in your duties, we'll provide you with a number of resources, including this presentation, which gives an overview of the judicial nominating process. We'll also provide in-depth written materials, such as the Judicial Nominating Commission Handbook, which includes your local commission rules, information about the caseload in your judicial district, and links to additional sources of information. Please make use of all of these resources.
Let's start with an overview of your role as commissioner. In 1966, the people of Colorado passed a constitutional amendment requiring our state judges to be appointed rather than elected. That selection process set forth in our Constitution requires judicial nominating commissions to review applicants and select nominees. Local nominating commissions exist in each of Colorado's 22 judicial districts. For vacancies on the county court or district court, the local nominating commission submits the names of 2 to 3 nominees to the governor. For vacancies on the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court, the state nominating commission must submit the names of 3 nominees to the governor. In each case, the governor then has 15 days to choose one of the nominees to fill the vacancy. The nomination process is entrusted to a select group of people. Attorney commissioners on the nominating commissions are appointed by a majority vote of the governor, attorney general, and chief justice. Non-attorney commissioners are appointed by the governor. The governor's selection of quality judges begins with you and your dedication and commitment as a commissioner. Your appointment to the nominating commission indicates that these state leaders trust that you have the knowledge, the experience, and judgment to provide a fair and unbiased evaluation of candidates for these judicial positions. Let's take a look at what this means.
The fair and unbiased evaluation of candidates is absolutely critical to the selection process. Bias is a term that can have different connotations depending on the context. Certainly, we all have biases. Here, we're asking you to be aware of preconceptions and stereotypes that might taint your assessment of a candidate's qualifications to be a judge. We may be unaware that stereotypes or preconceptions are influencing how we view an applicant, even when we're trying our best to be fair.
Now that you've gained an overview on the role of a commissioner and the need to provide a fair and unbiased evaluation of the candidates, I'll take a few moments to discuss unconscious bias and how it intersects with you in your role as commissioner. Unconscious bias, also known as implicit bias, are those attitudes, beliefs, or even stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions in an unconscious manner. The decisions can be in favor of or against someone and can have positive or negative consequences. In this case, as you review candidates' application materials, conduct interviews, and make your selection, your unconscious bias can impact your decision without you being aware of it. Perhaps you have an image in your mind of what a judge should look like or how they should act or sound. If you bring these preconceived notions into the process without consciously questioning these thoughts, you may give preference to those who fit that preconceived notion while overlooking those who are equally qualified but don't match your ideals. So I'd like to share with you 3 ways to recognize and minimize the impact of bias. First, awareness. You cannot eliminate bias, but you can mitigate its impact on you and your decisions. You must first become aware of them by taking a critical look at your preconceived notions. If you have discovered that you do have thoughts on what a judge should look like, write down those qualities and ask yourself which traits are actually required for the job. Then look at the candidates again. Your list may or may not change based on this critical evaluation, but you can be more comfortable with your decision knowing you've taken steps to reduce any biases you have. Second, standardization. Think about ways to standardize the interview process. Unstructured interviews that lack defined questions can increase the risk of bias impacting the process. Structured interviews whereby each candidate is asked the same or very similar set of questions minimize biases by allowing the interviewers to hone in on factors that directly impact performance. And finally, resources and training. There are great resources available in your handbook and online, including the free anonymous online test called the Implicit Association Test, developed by Harvard University.
In addition to providing a fair and unbiased evaluation of candidates, being a judicial nominating commissioner requires confidentiality. This is an important responsibility.
Anything that's said or done within the commission meeting, including the discussions the commissioners might have as part of the interviews with the candidates, the deliberations, and the voting process, all of that information is confidential and may not be revealed to anyone outside the commission. In addition, the names that are submitted to the governor must remain confidential until they're actually presented to the governor. Once the names are released to the press, you're free to tell people who the nominees are.
Commissioners may also receive input from members of the community about particular candidates.
Some commissions conduct due diligence on the candidates to be interviewed. This might include calling counsel in cases the candidate is listed in the application or talking to judges before whom the candidate has appeared. To encourage honest feedback, you should let these individuals know that their comments will remain confidential and will be shared only with the commission.
Sometimes commissioners will receive unsolicited comments from people who are either fans or detractors of a particular candidate. These individuals may want to give you information about one or more candidates. You're free to talk to these individuals or not, but if you do talk to them, try to find out how well they actually know the candidate and make sure you understand their motivation and the basis of their opinions. Specific examples of conduct are much more helpful than general statements about a candidate's qualifications.
Now that you have a sense of the role and responsibility of the commissioner, let's discuss what you should look for in a candidate. We'll begin by asking the all-important question: what makes a good judge? Clearly, good candidates will have the right combination of education and experience that make them suited for the job.
Courts are presented with a wide range of cases, and judges are expected to competently decide all the legal questions that are raised in those cases. Of course, it's probably impossible to find a single individual whose life and work experience covers all areas of the law. But it's important to look for individuals who possess a willingness to work hard and to learn areas of the law with which they are not familiar. It's helpful when the judges on a particular bench have a diverse legal experience as a group, including in civil, criminal, and family law, as well as in representing plaintiffs and defendants and individuals and businesses. After all, judges are called upon to resolve all types of disputes, and having a bench with varied experience is optimal. Because the people who appear in our courtrooms come from all walks of life, it's also helpful if the judges in a judicial district come from a variety of social, economic, and cultural backgrounds.
We, judges and justices, represent a collection of voices and viewpoints and life experiences. as we all work to resolve disputes and arrive at the best decisions we can. The strength of our judicial system depends on the public perception that everyone is treated equally under the law. When the smart and hardworking judges who serve on our courts both reflect and understand the communities they serve, people are more likely to walk away from their courtroom experience believing in the fundamental fairness of the system, the notion that justice is truly equal. And that perception, in turn, promotes respect for the decisions rendered by that system, which preserves and strengthens the rule of law.
In addition to education, work, and life experience, what other important qualities make a good judge?
Well, the most important thing for a judge is a sound legal mind. A judge needs to be able to take a large quantity of information, process it, and figure out the right result in a quick and efficient way. And then secondly, a judge needs to be able to take that result and be able to communicate it in a way that will make sense to parties, often who are not represented.
Another characteristic of a good judge would be a good listener, someone who's patient, because a lot of times you get people in front of you who don't really know why they're there, don't really know what the law is, and they're just doing their best and trying to have their time to explain their side. So it's a lot of wading through what they're saying to get to the heart of what they want to be presented.
I think leadership is one of the most important qualities for a judge. We're naturally leaders within the legal profession, and we can help guide change and improvements within the judicial branch. But also we're leaders in our community, and we need to make sure that we're engaging in our community. We can help educate the community about who we are, what we do, and how we do what we do, and really be part of the community, not just as judges, but as individual members.
I think the governor's office is looking for the same things that the commission's looking for. Somebody who can be fair, who will apply the law, and probably first and foremost have a good demeanor while doing it. And that may be one of the most difficult things to put your finger on. But one of the things that we always looked to in trying to assess that was talking to people who may have been opposing counsel to a candidate, and how did that person treat those who were on the other side of a case. That often gives a great deal of insight into their demeanor, their ability to treat people with respect under difficult circumstances.
Empathy. I believe it's really important in this essential function of our government that the individual in front of the court understand what's happening and understand the consequences of the judge's decision. And if the judge can put themselves in the party's shoes to really ascertain that they understand what's happening is the most important quality.
They're all right. And we've learned from experience that certain qualities are particularly necessary to being a good judge. Let's hear from some of our judges.
One of the most important qualities in a judge is his or her demeanor. Why is demeanor important? Because poor demeanor prevents a judge from being effective. And demeanor is something that is not likely to change. Having good judicial demeanor means the judge is courteous, firm, and even-handed, even towards people the judge might otherwise find disagreeable. It means the judge has respect for all participants in the system. It also means the judge is considerate of the needs of the jurors, the litigants, and court personnel, including matters as mundane as making sure that everybody gets a decent lunch break.
Fairness must be at the core of a judge's decision-making process. Commissioners should consider whether a candidate will be able to set aside preconceived notions or biases and make fair and principled decisions based on the facts and the law. A judge must be able to apply the law and follow legal procedures even in cases that go against the judge's personal beliefs and, just as importantly, even when the outcome may be unpopular with the public at large.
Our Code of Judicial Conduct states judges are responsible for controlling their courtrooms and ensuring that everybody is treated fairly and equally. This includes both litigants and their attorneys. A judge who interrupts a lawyer who is a woman or minority more frequently, who appears to not take their positions as seriously, or who downgrades such individuals in more subtle ways in front of the jurors, may be expressing a bias that is inappropriate. So, it's important when you're screening applicants to make sure that the people you're prepared to nominate to the governor will treat everyone fairly.
Diligence is another important characteristic of a good judge. A diligent judge issues decisions promptly and is efficient in managing a docket, which is particularly important in these days of ever-increasing caseloads. Much of a judge's work happens in chambers. A diligent judge takes the time to review the necessary case materials before heading out onto the bench for a hearing or a trial. A diligent judge does the necessary legal research to resolve an issue and pays attention to new developments in the law. Finally, a diligent judge is a good team player, willing to help out his or her fellow judges and take on time-consuming and complicated cases.
A good judge respects the judicial system and the rule of law. Our legal system works only if the judge believes that it can and that it does. A good judge is not cynical and doesn't interject his or her personal feelings into a case. A good judge is not swayed by outside influences or by public opinion and always strives to reach fair conclusions.
In evaluating the applicants, it's important to try to discern each applicant's true motivation for applying for a judicial appointment. Is the applicant pursuing a judicial appointment merely because of the prestige of the position? Is the applicant looking to slow down and work fewer hours? Or is the applicant genuinely passionate about the work that judges do? Generally, the judges who are happiest and excel the most are those who really love the work and would not consider doing anything else. These are individuals who are doing exactly the work they dreamt and hoped they would have an opportunity to do someday, and they're absolutely passionate about justice and serving the public.
Of course, while we want our judges to be perfect, we know that's not possible. Therefore, the commissioners should concentrate on finding candidates who best exemplify the qualities and characteristics that we've just discussed. This brings us to the last part of the commission selection process: how to evaluate whether a candidate has what it takes to be a good judge. So how can you know if a particular candidate will make a good judge, or at least know as best as you can? First, preparation is key. Start by reading the handbook. It contains comprehensive, evaluative, procedural, and legal information. In addition, familiarize yourself with the local rules adopted by the commission on which you serve. In some districts, these rules are quite detailed. Other districts have very few rules. Next, you have at your disposal two important tools: the written materials and the in-person interview. Let's look at those tools and how to use them to select good judicial candidates.
Take time to read and analyze each candidate's written application materials. The written application will help you evaluate a candidate's overall qualifications and to compare the qualifications of your candidate pool. You can use the written application to review the candidate's educational background, legal and professional experience, and their involvement in the community. Next are the references. Letters of recommendation can be a very good way to evaluate a candidate. Note who has provided a reference and how well the recommender actually knows the candidate. You might also note who has not provided a reference. Reference letters provide a good opportunity to formulate specific questions for the interview. For example, you might want to ask the candidate why a longtime employer did not provide a reference. Finally, consider the essay. Use the essay to evaluate both what is said and how it is said. The essay is an opportunity to gain some insight into the candidate's character and their motivations for applying. The essay also provides an excellent opportunity to evaluate the candidate's writing and communication skills. This is especially important for candidates applying for an appellate court position. Those candidates will also submit a separate legal writing sample.
Commissioners should use the written materials to formulate questions about a candidate, potentially eliminate a candidate, and to compare candidates. As you review a candidate's materials, you should write down specific interview questions that will elicit the information you want. For example, you may want to organize your questions by category, such as professional and legal experience, time management and organization, administrative skills, and judicial demeanor. After you have thoroughly reviewed the written materials, you will have a chance to conduct an in-person interview of the candidates.
Sometimes the Commission may receive so many applications for a position that it's not possible to interview everyone who has applied. In that instance, the justice serving as the ex officio chair may convene a conference call with the Commission to go over the applications and determine whom to interview.
The interview is critical to deciding whether a candidate possesses the qualities of a good judge. The interview is perhaps the best opportunity to evaluate the candidate's demeanor and to hear the candidate's answers to specific questions, and to visualize the candidate on the bench. The interview allows the Commission to evaluate the candidate's communication skills and whether the candidate can be fair and impartial. The interview also provides the best opportunity to compare the candidates to each other.
The interview will provide you with a great deal of valuable information, and a good way to get that information is by using a technique called behavior-based questioning.
Behavior-based questioning is an excellent way to evaluate in an unbiased manner if a candidate has the qualities that make a good judge. It's based on the concept that the best predictor of future performance is past performance. Behavior-based interview techniques often produce better answers from candidates than the traditional open or closed-ended questions.
Behavior-based questions elicit specific behavior-oriented answers about past performance. For example, let's say a candidate's application mentions that she has experience handling high-profile cases. You could ask the candidate a close-ended question like this.
Ms. Jones, have you ever handled a high-profile case?
Yes, I have.
You could ask the candidate an open-ended question like this. What high-profile cases have you handled? But the behavior-based question is more like this.
Tell us about this high-profile case you reference in your application, and tell us how you handled the media pressure and how you stayed true to your ethical obligations as an attorney.
Okay, well, there was a Hollywood star.
Behavior-based questions require the candidate to discuss specific examples of past behavior in certain situations. The candidate's response to such questions can help the Commission better predict how the candidate might handle similar situations in the future.
You can quickly form an impression about someone just a few minutes into an interview, and sometimes it's hard to separate those impressions from affinity biases that cause us to gravitate toward people with whom we share common traits. You have to work a little harder to get to know the person's demeanor, character, and skills beyond what the candidate is presenting in an interview situation. You can use behavior-based questioning to get those insights, and asking similar behavior-based questions of each candidate will allow you to make better, more objective comparisons.
No matter what type of questions you ask, there are some ground rules that you must follow. Focus on job-related questions. You may want to know things about a candidate that you think are important, but are not proper criteria for assessing whether the candidate is qualified to serve as a judge. For example, a candidate may have several children, prompting you to ask how the candidate will juggle the responsibilities of the job with home life. Even though this question may seem job-related, it is really about the candidate's personal life. It reflects potential bias and shouldn't be asked. Other areas of questioning that are inappropriate include age, race, religion, sexual orientation, marital and family status, childcare arrangements, and health issues. Please carefully review the handbook materials regarding proper and improper questions.
One last point that bears repeating. You'll want to ask consistent questions of the applicants in order to fairly compare their answers. You may have one or two questions specific to each applicant, but asking all the applicants the same core set of questions is one of the best ways to compare applicants for final selection and to ensure this is a fair process.
As you think about your questions, focus on the ones that will get to the heart of the matter. Remember that you'll have limited time. Be sure to consider your strategy for tracking your written and interview evaluations so you can make a comparative decision later on. It's not uncommon for every candidate to be qualified, so you'll need to decide how you will measure their differences, both strengths and weaknesses, before you begin. When it comes time to make your decision, here are some important considerations.
You need to weigh all the materials available, including the written application, letters of reference, and the essay. Don't rely just on the interview. It's important for a candidate to have good verbal communication skills, but concentrate on substance first and performance second. The candidates are nervous, and helping put the candidates at ease allows you to have a more revealing and in-depth interview. Remember, there is no single personality type that makes a good judge. Both introverts and extroverts have been very successful at the job.
Great judges come from a variety of different backgrounds. Be sure to ask the question you need to know to make the best decision, irrespective of the other commissioner's experience. Everyone will have different interests. Everyone will focus on qualities that they think are the most important.
As you consider those qualities you think are important, remember that unconscious bias may influence your decisions. Those 3 simple acts of awareness, standardization, and resources and training can minimize that influence and allow you to feel comfortable as you move forward in the selection process.
Once the individual commissioners are ready to make a decision, the dynamics of group decision-making begin.
Decide how the group will reach a decision, whether by secret ballot or ranking or some other type of voting mechanism. The justice who is chairing your commission can help facilitate your discussions and suggest options for how to conduct your voting. For example, after the interviews are completed, it may be useful to start by eliminating candidates whom the majority of the commission doesn't think should advance in the process, or by identifying the candidate which all agree shouldn't be nominated. Then it's easier to compare and contrast the remaining candidates. Remember, you don't have to arrive at a unanimous approval of one person. You need to reach an agreement on a list of final candidates for submission. Your role is to make a group decision as to the most qualified persons and not to be an advocate for or against any individual candidate. Every commissioner's voice and opinion is important. Make sure everyone has a chance to freely and openly express their opinion. Speak up to change the dynamics if one person is dominating the conversation. Every commissioner's opinion should be listened to and valued.
We end this presentation with this thought. As you are considering candidates, imagine the candidate on the bench. You're standing before the judge who's about to make a decision that could affect you for the rest of your life. What would you want that judge's demeanor to be? His or her experience? His or her command of the law? His or her track record for dealing with someone just like you? As a judicial nominating commissioner, it's highly likely that your decision will place someone, in fact, many people, in that exact situation. We have faith and trust in your ability to carry out this tremendous responsibility, and we believe that your use of the information in this presentation will make you better prepared to do it. Thanks for watching.